got all these security guys in there, but they've told them not to stop anyone who steals anything.
Oh, wait, is this in America?
Okay. Right, am I in focus? Lovely, lovely. You check the other one for me as well, Mary. I know this is going to be a pain.
Is the live stream on Twitter or on YouTube?
It's on. Oh, I'm not doing
I
Twitter.
have some friends asking how can they.
Well, I probably should have done. It's on YouTube and TikTok.
Okay.
I probably should have done Twitter, shouldn't I? What do you think, Mary?
Sorry.
Should we do Twitter or TikTok?
I think, didn't it not work on Twitter?
I can't remember.
I mean, more people as well.
Well, let's see. Okay.
If it fails, you know.
Yeah. Okay, good afternoon. Let me just, it's only football. So I'm going to pretend that I really love football for about 2 seconds. I'm very sorry that the Lionesses didn't make it to be the winners, but it certainly would have created some nice conversations about what a woman is. And it will have reminded even Keir Starmer that actually women's sport is really quite important for little girls. If we want our daughters and little girls that we care about to have any sort of relationship with sport, then we need to make sure women's sport is actually just for women. So thank you, Lionesses. And I know this is maybe too much to ask, but I'm just going to say to each and every one of them that receive such support across the country, I beg of every one of you to talk about how important women's sport is for women and use your very temporary platform, because it will be very temporary. I mean, I remember the 2012 Olympics where we were all supposed to care about sport in children's schools, and that lasted about 3.5 minutes. And then nothing happened, and in fact what they did is they reduced playing fields and they reduced the time that children spend exercising, and then they locked them all down so they couldn't get any exercise whatsoever. So we know it won't last. So dear Lionesses, with your temporary platforms, please use it to talk about why you got to the top of your game, and it wasn't because even elite athletes who speak against men and women's sports, it wasn't because when you started playing football as a little girl in your school or on a playing field or a Sunday league or whatever, that there were also boys playing with you. It's because right the way through your journey to that elite position, you had female-only sports and female-only spaces, so I beg of them to speak about it. Well, anyway. Okay, so now, how we normally start this, and it's very small in number today because it is August. I don't know if you noticed. It is August, although the weather is identifying as October, but it is actually August. So, what a day this has been, what a rare mood I'm in, why it's almost like being a... Yay, well done. Okay, so what's been happening? Well, Spain is absolutely fallen. And so it's really important with their football team as well that they take this opportunity to talk about female-only spaces, because Spain is having an absolutely terrible time, which is quite odd for such a predominantly Catholic country. That I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, they put on the side of a bus that boys are boys and girls are girls, and that got removed in Spain. So they've been falling down this particular rabbit hole for quite some time. And I just also want to talk about, if you haven't heard about it, there is an older lesbian couple, although perhaps I shouldn't say older, they're like in their mid-50s, I think, so not that much older than me. So there is a lesbian couple who have a regular spot, go to this restaurant in the Brecon Beacons, and they voice concerns, shame on them, for ADHD, bloke in a dress with his visible penis, who calls himself a drag queen, and he was going to be the face of Pride. And they launched a complaint with the Pride committee, I assume. And because of that, they got told they're not allowed in their local restaurant because the local restaurant doesn't have any understanding of the law, but also because the local restaurant have decided that the most vicious anti-LGBT people are actually lesbians. Because damn them and their penis exclusion, because that's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about, I think they're called, they were called homophobes. This lesbian couple that probably until their mid-30s never felt comfortable holding hands in public, and maybe they still don't, I don't know, but didn't feel comfortable being out lesbians, probably had quite a lot of struggles, quite a lot of crap at school, and then they get to their ripe old age of 55 and they're told by virtue signalling, penis-centering morons that they're homophobic. So please find them on Twitter. I have tweeted about them, but please find them on Twitter. And it's always good to give a good TripAdvisor review to restaurants stupid enough to make themselves vulnerable to being called genuine homophobes by every single person. I mean, if all of us did it, I think they've got 4 stars at the moment. So I think it'd be nice by the end of play today that they maybe just had a 1 star. And that would kind of be good because that could almost be a gold star, which would link nicely to the lesbians. I thought we could, you know, gold star lesbians, we could kind of tie it in there and that would be the message that these people need to hear. So I'll come to you in a minute. Right, so what else? We've got, I want to call him Avril Lavigne, but it's not. It's the monster Lavigne in America, talking about, more and more talking about so-called gender-affirming care. And I just want you all to know, anything with the word gender in it is utter bullshit. And anti-women, usually it's kind of, if you say gender, what you mean is women are an idea. Women are a set of rules, and you can be one of those if you, I mean, I definitely fit woman. Thanks, Mary. My own voice echoing, as it often does. So I'm definitely a woman because I wear lipstick. And I have blonde hair and earrings, oh, and nails. And then in other news, and I'm going to do that thing of just reaffirming to everybody that I have never said dress how you like, because I think that's ridiculous. I don't believe dress how you like. I believe what you wear gives a certain set of messages, coded messages to everyone. And if you're a bloke in a dress, and you're going to be on primetime TV like Strictly Come Dancing, and some weeks you're going to wear men's clothes, and some weeks you're going to wear women's dresses, and I predict now that you're going to come out looking like a ghastly drag queen, then what I take from that is that the BBC are now promoting drag more and more in your homes to normalise men dressing up as mockeries of women. So on the one hand, we've got old fridge magnet queen Amanda Abingdon, who knows what a woman is. And then I feel like, to counter that, and I don't know what boss got her in, because I would have thought actually just by her views and her past comments, she would have been totally blacklisted by the BBC, but somebody got her in and then somebody else was like, oh no, do you know what we'll do? We'll balance that with a man coming out sometime dressed in a dress. And I'm right. I know I'm right already that it will be full-on drag queen. And I know I'm right in saying that everyone will comment, like, nauseously about how amazing, oh, he just looks so amazing. Or you just carry off that dress so well. Because we're all supposed to think that guy who played a fairy godmother looks amazing in a tuxedo dress. I just am not buying it. I thought he looked ghastly on the red carpet in dresses. And I don't care if anyone thinks that makes me gender non-conforming, because like I said, anything with the word gender is anti-women. That's what it is. That's why you can encapsulate all that just like that. So I know some people are not going to like very much that I don't like men dressing as women in any way, shape or form, because I can sense, and I'm sure most of us can sense, what that message is. And it's not men should just be able to wear what they like. It's definitely coded with sexualized versions of women, with a mockery of women, and with an underpinning of really not liking women very much at all. So that's what I want to say. Anyway, this is Speaker's Corner. I'm not supposed to lecture you forever. So come up here, say whatever you want to say. There's not many of you, but I'd still like you to keep it less than 5 minutes. Mary keeps saying she's going to bring some sort of clipboard and timer. Did you? No. But do you want to, even if it's really heartfelt, someone's right in the middle of, just say, stop! I have a bit really tough, I do Tough Talk Tuesday on YouTube, and I have a really tough time when someone's talking to find that bit to cut in, just to say, could you round off? Especially men, they do like to ring up and talk a long time. Anyway, so if you'd like to come and say whatever you want to say, this is the place to say it. Claire, would you like to go first?
If that will get us off to a start, I'm very happy to do that.
Claire's come dressed as a lesbian today. So you need both of these because we're going to, I've chosen TikTok today.
Oh yeah, on TikTok. Are we all clear what a lesbian is? They're female, yeah, and they're homosexual. And that revolves around sex, ladies and gentlemen. Of course it does. The first point I wanted to make was to reiterate what Posie said, is jolly well get onto that hotel restaurant in Brecon, as I did last night. Oh yes, it's good fun because you can also write them an email. And into that email, they also showed signs of not knowing what happened the night of Stonewall. And of course it was a butch lesbian who was resisting while the others were just standing around. Because what she said was, why don't you guys do something? Yes, which rather implies that they weren't doing anything. The first thing that was thrown was copper coins. Exactly the same in English, coppers. Yeah? They ran out of coppers and they started throwing silver. And then a gay man, a Hispanic gay man, picked up a curbstone and he threw it. Not a single transgender person in sight. And just because they did the can-can, I mean, there were several nights, so just because they did the can-can at some random point during the weekend doesn't mean they started Stonewall, good heavens above. Where was that thought going? Oh yes, Marsha P. Johnson, by his own account, arrived late. By his own account, was a male homosexual. And by the account of Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Ray Rivera was actually stoned. And they may or may not have been in the vicinity of the Stonewall Inn, but they weren't in a position to say anything about it. I come fresh from Brighton, where standing for lesbians and gays and bisexuals, not to mention the poor old intersex people, I did take that heterosexual invasion flag. I did remove it. I took it home. I got my 60-centimetre saw. I cut it beautifully and accurately. I cleaned off all the burrs on the back and I took it back down to the Methodists and I hung it the right way round. I have a medal for the rainbow flag. Over my dead body do they get to hang it upside down, which is, as anybody who knows anything about flags, is an insult. And in medieval times it was used to declare war. Okay, you declared war, you might not have intended it, but I get the message, you know. And even last night an intersex woman came to me, a DSD, she said, we hate that circle. We hate it. So it's also about taking care of minorities who are much, much smaller than we are. The other thing, if you look up your flag protocol, is it means in distress. You put your flag upside down and it means in distress or a hostile takeover. So in fact, that vertical of the heterosexual invasion flag, I won't call it progress, is very definitely expressing our distress and a hostile takeover. I am moving, and this is my final statement, I am moving on a declaration of independence of LGB from the T. Pride history started with homosexual activists making demonstrations at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. Then Stonewall happened and those demonstrations stopped. If you look at the Declaration for American Independence, you'll see where I'm going with this. But watch this space, and anybody who wants to help, get in touch with me.
Thank you. Can I take the microphone? Well done, lovely. I just want to say to TikTok, because TikTok's not our regular audience, shall we say. It's a brainwashed community of kids, predominantly, and what they don't understand is the Chinese government are having a great time totally annihilating the brains of our youth. And so there's a lot of, no thanks, hun. So I thought I'd go to TikTok because if you put any videos on TikTok, they'll take them down. But lives, they don't seem to be that quick. And so we can get the adult human, women are adult human females. We can get that message out on TikTok, and there will be loads of young people that have no idea that there is any dissent against the shit that they are being fed. There will be loads of kids that have no idea that it's absolutely fine to say, as a girl, that you would feel embarrassed and quite scared about men undressing in your changing rooms. There was a man recently on Mumsnet asking, what should he do? Because there's a man that goes in his daughter's changing room with swimming. And the girls have just revealed that they feel really uncomfortable, and this man's there all the time getting undressed, naked, in with his daughters. I would have thought that should be a cry from prison. Does anyone have any good lawyers? Because I've just ripped somebody's head off. That would be, if anybody did that to my daughter, I can't tell you the visuals I have in my brain of what I might do to somebody if they dared to flash at my daughter in a changing room. But I wouldn't be saying, what should I do? Because it would be so late. By the time I engaged any reason at all, it would be too late. I would have done what I should have done. And that person definitely would never go in a women's changing room ever again. For a multitude of reasons. One would be that they wouldn't be able to. And I think you should be allowed to talk about that when it comes to somebody sexually assaulting kids. And I just want to revisit some of the, I won't call it hysteria because apparently we're not allowed to say that anymore. Some of the nuttery around me saying that I don't like men dressing up as little girls. And I just want to say this. It's deeply, deeply homophobic to say that that is a representation of homosexual men. That actually, I was in New York in 2019, and these two men in their early 50s, they've been together for about 30 years. One was a emergency room nurse, and I can't remember what the other guy did, but they were bereft at the intrusion and invasion of perverts into the gay community in which they belonged. Predominantly straight men, actually, but also just a range of perversion that they had fought really hard to convince people that it was all right to be a gay man and a teacher. because they weren't paedophiles, they weren't going to interfere with children. And they wanted to be seen as regular human beings, because I don't know, because they are. And now you've got this new thing where anything goes. On pride parades, you've got men dressed as pups with their dicks out. And you've got deranged majority women taking their children to look at these, like sometimes men in pants just twerking. Just fat old men in pants. Like tighty-whitey Y-front pants. And people sort of clapping it along, or I don't know if you all saw the picture, I think it was Germany, and you've got all these straight women. Why are you going to Pride? I just want to ask that for a start. Why do so many straight women go to Pride? It was never for you. It's not for you. You can support people in other ways, but it's not your parade for a start. But loads of straight women go to Pride. And now they take their kids. Anyway, so there's a corporate Pride thing. Everyone's like, yay, yay. And they cut the picture at the point where there's just a man stood there, with a little frame around his penis. And sort of, I don't know whether he's taken hormones or whether he's just a bit chubby. But he's got moobs. And he's just stood there like this, like bold as brass, and everyone's having a great time, and they cut it, and I thought, how dishonest. Because actually, that's what these women are really celebrating. They're celebrating just random perverts with their penises out in public, because it gives them license. But anyway, I just wanted to address that, because I just feel that it is right that we don't let go of our boundaries for anything or anyone. It's right that we hold those boundaries, because without them, you have the likes of Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris. I don't know if it's a prerequisite of presenting on BBC. But you had all these men that were given unfettered access because people stopped watching. And even those that did and knew said nothing. And then you've got unfettered access if you wear a nice little white collar. You could have unfettered access to children, or if you're a sports coach, or if you can basically offer parents something where they turn a blind eye and surrender their kids. And this LGBT and drag and all of those things, and I say LGBT and I don't mean LGB, I think we all know when we say LGBT, it really is the T. But now we're being sold, force-fed this stuff because people don't want to be seen as homophobic. They'd rather just let some safeguarding loose than be accused of being homophobic. And I just want you to know that throughout the country over the last few decades, people would rather allow girls to be raped than be accused of being racist. And that's how boundaries are broken. So please, if it feels wrong, it is wrong, and you have every right to say it. So anyway, who's next? Who's next? Come on, there's hardly any of you. Actually, that's not true, TikTok. There's loads of people. Paula? Okay, would you like to talk about all that? That's all right, you look prepared. Just identify as really super prepared, it'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be lovely. I'd really like to say that it's time that people who work in healthcare stand up against gender ideology that's taking over every hospital, whether it's NHS or the private sector. I've recently gone to my CEO, who then referred me to safeguarding. And although I don't think I'll change minds in what I obviously highlighted the Women's Rights Network investigation into the rape and sexual assaults in a 3-year period, and I spoke about Teresa Steele's being refused care because she didn't want to enter into any manifestations of gender ideology. And I also spoke about Valerie, who was went into hospital with a stroke and they thought she'd died of another stroke, but it was found out at autopsy that she died of hemorrhage because she was raped in hospital. So we need to stand up as healthcare professionals, and we need to start saying to people high up in our organisations that we say no to this dangerous ideology that is affecting especially women in our hospitals. Please read about it. Please, it is time. We need all of us who work in healthcare to tell people at the top that we say no. That's it. Sorry, I hadn't prepared anything.
Both of those, that was great. It's good enough for me. Lovely. Come on then, who's next? Yes. Lovely, thank you. Oh, I like your trousers.
Thanks.
I feel like very nice.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I wasn't going to speak today, so I'll just very quickly talk about. I think what's an endemic problem that a lot of people have in their workplace, sort of free speech and institutional reputation policies. So I work for a university, and I'm sure the kinds of policies that our university has is very, very similar, because what happens is you're basically trapped in a network of policies that actually make no sense whatsoever, which mean that people can get you for anything. So our university supposedly supports free speech. It's got a free speech policy, but it's also got a general policy in your contract about not bringing the university into disrepute. So, but what on earth that might mean is completely vague. I've also discovered it's got a policy whereby anything that you say on your work social media has to be entirely separate from your own personal social media. So, for example, if you say anything on Twitter relation to your work, you need to have an entirely separate Twitter account in which you post personal things, which is actually quite frankly ridiculous, especially if you've got a name or if you're known in your field, or if your field is such that. So, for example, in me, I have a job 2 days a week where I'm employed on a certain matter of things, but I do lots of freelance things where I have opinions about things which might be inconsistent with what supposedly the reputation of where I work. And in fact, round about Easter time, shortly after your holiday, remember that holiday you had in New Zealand? shortly after Kellie-Jay's relaxing holiday in New Zealand, I, like many people here, I was incredibly alarmed, having been watching the live stream, not knowing whether or not you were being killed, and therefore tweeted stuff about it. Whereupon, lo and behold, I had an emergency meeting with my boss, who told me, "You've gone too far this time, Paula. People are saying you're bringing our centre into disrepute." And the 5-minute Zoom conversation ended up with clean up your Twitter account or resign. So, because I thought that my colleagues were upset, I did actually delete loads and loads of tweets, sat on my settee crying, deleting tweets for hours, which is how I looked up all the different policies and found out I contacted a free speech union who really couldn't really do anything very much. I decided not to put in an official complaint. I emailed HR, had no response. But the eventual response I had from Free Speech Union is that they don't take a side on any particular issue, but nonetheless, the people who are getting these complaints, the numerous problems that people have with expressing views in relation to work, all come from trans activists. Well, I can't say, they didn't say all, I must be accurate, but it's overwhelmingly, they're completely overwhelmed. So, sorry, I normally work out what I'm going to try to say but I'm just talking off the cuff, but the ludicrous situation in work where you've got this vague notion that you mustn't bring that you're supposed to have free speech, but you mustn't bring your institution into disrepute when there's absolutely no explanation whatsoever about what bringing them into disrepute is. And if being concerned about the close murder of somebody you know is bringing them into disrepute, I don't know what the hell's going on, really.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. Can I just say, while Paula was talking, the comment, seriously, you've got to look at TikTok too. It's funny. They're going, where is she on LinkedIn? Let's report her to her employer, as she's talking about being reported to her employer. And what's sinister is if Paula's timeline was full of even quite like proper semi-porn drag, if she shared the image of the drag artist who looked like he was masturbating his breasts. That's the only way I can sort of describe it. It was a really male action. It's certainly not an action that I think any woman is involved in. But the drag queen who then shot foamy something out of his fake breasts on RuPaul's Drag Race, if Paula's timeline was full of that, she wouldn't be in trouble. There's no one in a HR department going, that person follows too much Monroe Bergdorf in pornified shoots. Or that person keeps saying that women have penises. Nobody's in trouble at work for that. That's what makes this super sinister. It's not that you can't have opinions. It's that you can't have opinions that mean that you center women. So that's what it is. It's if you don't center men, if you don't worship the mighty penis, then you're in trouble at work. I just want to say some of the things that we are doing on the Adult Human Female store. We're bringing out an action pack so you can get busy. But one of the things that we've got at the moment are these very little leaflets, tiny but mighty. And they really fit well in like the inside of books. Not that I would say go to Waterstones. Not that I would say target particular sections of Waterstones. I wouldn't say go into foils. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say go in your local library. I wouldn't say any of those things, and I wouldn't say slip one of these in there. Although I don't know if it would be illegal because it's not permanent. And it's a beautiful, it's a lovely bookmark. Oh, TikTok's just cut me off.
Yeah, for violations. Your live is flagged for sexually suggesting content.
Sexually suggesting content. It's the milkshake. So that's one of the things you can do. We also have, I'm just going to be a little bit mercenary. We also have like every single one of the stickers that we produce you can buy, and on days like this you can, I'm telling you, the sticker action is you put the sticker in your hand and you have the sticky side facing out, and I'm telling you, the best thing I've ever done is go to a very woke festival-y type thing and put it on people's bags. So as they walk by, especially if people pushed into me, you could easily look like you were just defending yourself a little bit, and you just do that. And it was the TERF one. So I've got a really good TERF badge with a QR code, and so you just wipe it on them, and honestly, it's the most fun because it'll be someone super, super woke, and then they'll just have this thing on the back of their bags that say TERF. And they touch me first, so it's not like I'm going around touching people. They've touched me first. It's just my defence. Also, I am going back to New Zealand. The police put out a statement saying they haven't told me not to come. But they have advised me it's best if I do my interview in the court remotely. I think that's kind of advising me not to come. They have advised, they've said, we can't guarantee your safety. I think that is advising me not to come. So when they put out this statement saying we've never done, they absolutely have done that. But also this time around, there's apparently quite a lot of men who fancy themselves as security. And so I will have that the whole time I'm there. And last time I got, my hotel room was cancelled on the way over. I got notes under my new hotel room door. I was in customs for 2 hours. They didn't search me though. They just kept me there for 2 hours and searched my cases, including putting all my underwear like on top of stuff. It was properly supposed to humiliate me, but they definitely, I mean, if you're doing a random search and stop, if you just randomly stop someone, surely you're at least searching the person. Surely you think that it's either a thorough random stop or it's just targeting someone. And the woman's like, I don't watch the news. You know, I don't know anything about it. I don't watch the news. I'm like, I've literally been the news for the last 3 or 4 weeks. High court cases, emergency high court cases, to try and stop me getting in. I kind of wonder whether I'm going to get to the border and they'll stop me anyway and refuse me entry. But we'll see. Depends how much wine I drink on the flight, I suppose. But yeah, so I'm going back to New Zealand because it's just sinister what's happening in all countries. America, pretty horrendous. We're doing well and it's still pretty dire. So if you would like to help me get to New Zealand, if you think the Let Women Speak movement is valuable, then I ask you humbly to come and be the billboard, because every penny that comes through the store ensures that we can do these meetings, because unfortunately, whilst it's free to attend, it's not free for me to put on. It does cost quite a substantial amount of money for the security, and I don't want you just to give me money, although I'm always happy to take it. But it's about participating, being the billboard. It's about feeling a little bit empowered, and also rescuing someone else from feeling completely isolated. The stories we get back at the adult human female store of either seeing a sticker somewhere, knowing then that you're not the only TERF in the village, or maybe seeing someone wearing something or having a chat with someone in a supermarket. Those things really do make a difference, and it sounds insane, right? That you just wear a t-shirt and you can change somebody's day, or maybe change someone from feeling really isolated. That they can't talk to their teenage kids because their teenage kids are woke and they're a little bit late on the uptake. They can't talk to their work colleagues because they're frightened of actually being reported to HR. But by the way, we do have some really great work items. We've got nice pens, woman, adult, human, female pens that can send a bit of a to HR. So I do ask you to do that. Are we still banned from TikTok?
No, they're just threatening you if you keep it up.
Oh. So I can talk about men, I can talk about pens, not penises. Is that right? So anyway, so people on TikTok, they keep saying trans rights are human rights. And this is their response. And report people. And freedom from... I just want to talk very quickly, and I realise I'm talking a lot, but that's because nobody's put a hand up. Freedom from consequences. What does that mean? What does free speech actually mean? And they say it's not freedom from consequences. So, the consequences for saying women don't have penises, and it's disgusting to transition children, those consequences for me have been to be interviewed by the police. So that is not free speech. Free speech is the right to say something. Does it mean that some people don't like it? Yes. Does it mean that they can take away your livelihood? That's not freedom from consequences. That is an affront to free speech. That is preventing you from speaking. If, when you stand to speak, you are drowned out by others, that is not freedom of speech. That is somebody else preventing you. If the people want to stand away and they want to say that what you're saying is disgusting, despicable, whatever they want to say, that's their right. But their right isn't to stop you talking or prevent you from being heard. So this freedom from consequences thing, I just want all of these little authoritarian twats on Twitter to understand the consequences for them. Championing authoritarianism is going to be far worse for them. Because if they allow the laws to go through where the police can be the arbiters of what it is that you're allowed to say anywhere, then just wait until it comes to them when they want to say something that the police have moved on from, because they will, and they've decided what they are saying is wrong and immoral and illegal. Because that's where we're heading. If you agree to the infringement of anybody's freedom of speech, you lose it for yourself. And the freedom from consequences is something that someone like Owen Jones would say. And Peter Tatchell. He is child friendly. I'll tell you what, Peter Tatchell constantly thinks about the right to two 15-year-olds to have sex with each other. That's what it's just a champion for teenage sex. It's not about adults having sex with children and those children not minding. He never talks about that. He says that's impossible to condemn. Maybe impossible. Just not for him. It's not impossible for any individual to say that having sex with children, raping kids is wrong. Peter just finds it a difficult sentence for him to utter with the word, I think it's wrong to rape children. I think he finds that impossible, don't you, Tatchell? If you read his fantasy, his account of a teenage boy having sex with adult males when that teenage boy is 12, and he's ever so compassionate in the fantasy interview, whatever it is that he's doing, that he says to that boy, aren't they harmful paedophiles? And the boy says, no. For some, they take advantage of children. For others, if you're a bit more mature, it's fine, because that's what people who care about children would say. And I don't say that sarcastically at all. But he's platformed by that wonderful TV station, Talk TV. Glinner, not so much. Glinner attacked, Tatchell given freedom to do that weird kind of voice pattern thing that he does, where he takes up loads of room with one sentence. And he's allowed just to talk endlessly about anything and never challenged, which is why I won't debate him. People have said recently, why don't you go on and debate that porn-sick man who sends revolting pictures to Henrietta? And my answer to that is, I wouldn't want to swim in sewage. I wouldn't want to give sewage any platform in which to share their festering, disgusting, fermenting shit with anyone. So I certainly wouldn't dirty myself talking with that no-mark who's just a hero on Twitter to convicted criminals. And I would argue to any one of us, and there's quite a few people that get routinely invited onto these shows, it's about time we started saying, no, there is no debate. There is no debate about whether or not a man can be in a woman's sport. Of course they fucking can't. There is no debate about boys in girls' changing rooms. There's no debate about transitioning children. There is absolutely no debate. I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of having to defend these stupid ideas that we all knew were stupid ideas a long time ago. And I am also going to say this, that when it comes to long, complicated arguments, there are none necessary. Women don't have penises, men don't have vaginas, there is no such thing as non-binary, transitioning children is profound abuse. If you need a complicated argument to convince you of those facts, then, why? Why do you need something complicated to say that every single one of us knows that we wouldn't want to place a 50-year-old bloke getting his penis out in a space with ourselves or any other woman or girl that we know? It's not complicated. It doesn't need a big, long, ontological explanation. Doesn't need loads of tweets. It doesn't need a long, complicated explanation. I think that's what's happened. That you've had people trying to make something really complicated about this and having whole theses and departments of universities devoted to the question, what is a woman? We all know what a woman is. That's it. End of discussion. Just mind the sexually explicit stuff because the kids on
Don't worry.
kids on TikTok are very sensitive to.
It's not going to be sexually explicit, not too bad. Right, so there's a lot of kids on TikTok who are saying trans rights are human rights as though it's a legitimate human rights campaign, and I think they really, really need to know, in terms of human rights, what they are campaigning for. So let's dissect what you're campaigning for. First up is men in women's prisons. Now this is a very obvious breach of ECHR Article 3, the right to freedom from torture, inhuman or degrading treatment. The legal definition of torture in the UK is shared with everywhere else except for the US. A person or public official acting in official capacity commits the offence of torture in the United Kingdom or elsewhere if he intentionally inflicts severe pain or suffering in the performance or purported performance of his official duties. This is from the Criminal Justice Act 1988. Now, it has three parts, this definition. A public person acting in official capacity. This would be the person sanctioning a transfer of a male inmate to a female prison. The intent, what somebody doing this transfer, a governor allowing this, would know about the sex offence rates, that 99% of offenders are male. And they would know about the crimes committed by the man they are sanctioning the transfer of. And the last bit is severe pain or suffering. Torture can be psychological as well as physical. We know from the 2021 case of FDJ versus Secretary of State that sexual assault is sufficient to engage Article 3. So when women are saying they froze in fear, they are shocked, they have panic attacks, when they are so scared of these men, they get a uterine coil fitted, because when they refuse to go out or partake in political activity, and when they are further sanctioned for complaining, this is state-sanctioned torture. Women have been raped in prison. One happened in Mexico just a couple of days ago. The Mexican Human Rights Commission acknowledged it happened and then sent the staff for gender training. And before you talk about female rapists, in the UK, a woman can't rape. You have to have a penis. All of the rapists that have gone into women's prisons in the UK are male. And if you think this is acceptable, Google Adam Graham's crimes. And if you think that's acceptable, you are not on the right side of history. You are the problem. Aside from torture, that article is also inclusive of degrading or inhuman treatment, such as denial of medical care to women because of their legally protected beliefs. Denying life-saving treatment to a woman who believes that men can't be women. It happened in the US and it happened here to Teresa Steele, whose name is in the public domain there. And yeah, that is inhuman treatment. You cannot deny medical care. That is a breach of the Hippocratic Oath and a breach of ECHR Article 3. Aside from that, we have Articles 9 and 10, which are freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Now, I will deal with them together because they are very similar. Maya Forstadter's case clarified, in law, gender critical beliefs are protected. You cannot discriminate against them. It is illegal. Freedom of speech includes offensive language, as long as it is not incitement to violence. So when Kellie-Jay is investigated for saying somebody is a lesbian who doesn't accept they're a lesbian, that may be offensive. It's not a breach of freedom of speech. It's not an incitement to violence. When women are investigated for saying a man can't be a woman, it is offensive to many. I think it's objectively true. It's not violent. Words are not violence. However, when Sarah Jane Baker, a convicted torturer who trans rights activists love, who also attempted to murder his cellmate, he said, punch TERFs in the fucking face. Now, this is definitely a breach of that. That is an incitement to violence. The police did nothing. The government had to get involved. And they think that they're oppressed? We can't say a man can't be a woman. They can tell us to get punched and the government have to kick the police into action. Next up, we have Article 11, freedom of association. Recently, a lesbian speed dating event was cancelled for not including men. So lesbians do not have that right apparently here. Women-only gatherings are nearly always protested. Not today because the students are at home. They're back in Oxfordshire and Cambridgeshire and the home counties, having a lovely time in Mummy and Daddy's house.
Actually, they're on TikTok.
And they're on TikTok. Hi guys! Hi guys! Yeah, so women do not have that right. Yeah, trans-only things aren't protested because trans people and trans activists, they have that right and we appreciate that. The last article I want to talk about is Article 14, which is discrimination, and it talks about various metrics, age, race, sex. One of them is language. And now inclusive language discriminates against people who speak English as a second language, particularly those with a non-Latin based language. Now, somebody with poor English will know what a woman is, because it's a very basic word in this language. They won't know what necessarily a bleeder or a menstruator or a cervix haver is. They might miss their cervical screening. And this is also sex discrimination, because you look at all the charities and all the campaigns aimed at prostate cancer and men's issues, and they say men. They talk in very precise terms about men. All the women's charities, it's people affected by cervix cancer, menstruator, cervix havers. It's like, I understand it because I speak English as my first language. Would a very poor immigrant woman who doesn't speak a European-based language be able to get the health care because she may not understand it? I don't know. And it's discrimination against these people. It is, at its heart, racist. And the last article is Article 17. You cannot campaign to remove ECHR rights from another group. Which you are campaigning to remove 5 rights, 5 of those from us, including Article 3, which is an absolute right. Under no circumstances can it be breached. And I will finish one thing, which is a case, a very famous case from 1988 from the European Court of Human Rights, platform Arzt für das Leben versus Austria, which was about counter-protests. Do we have the heckler's veto in Europe? Can a counter-protest stop an event? The answer is no, and the judgment is this. A demonstration may annoy or give offence to persons opposed to the claims or ideas that it is seeking to promote. The participants must, however, be able to hold the demonstration without having to fear that they will be subjected to physical violence by their opponents. Such a fear would be liable to deter associations or other groups supporting common ideas or interests on highly controversial issues affecting the community. In a democracy, the right to counter-demonstrate cannot extend to inhibiting the right to demonstrate. Genuine, effective freedom of peaceful assembly cannot, therefore, be reduced to a mere duty on the part of the state not to interfere. This is for the UK police here. The purely negative conception would not be compatible with the object and purpose of Article 11, freedom of association. Article 11 sometimes requires positive measures to be taken. The police to actively keep us from harm, even in the sphere of relations between individuals. So, what about women's rights is my last thing. Do you believe women have these rights? Or are you still wanting to strip them away like the men's rights activists you really are? We see through your movement. Oh shit, Mike.
I just didn't want you to talk.
Sorry, that went on and on.
No, it's wonderful. Well done. That's honestly, I'm really entertained by TikTok. Thank you, all the very angry children, for watching on TikTok. I just want to address some of their comments because I feel they do need addressing. One is, why don't you just focus your energy on the patriarchy instead of this? Can I just say, just because these men wear big shoes with big heels, it doesn't make it any less patriarchal. Now, I'm not a big fan of the whole, like, let's talk about the patriarchy, and I'll tell you why. I don't think it's not tangible enough for me. I think we can all recognise sexism. We all know it. But this sort of ethereal concept of power, I don't think is useful to fight against because you just can't see it and you can't feel it and you can't name it. However, if I were to believe in such a thing, I would think one of the greatest weapons against women that the patriarchy could have in 2023 would be pretending that men can be women and women really don't actually exist as a unique thing. There could be nothing more patriarchal than that. And when it comes to why we defend this, why this? Because we don't want penises in women's spaces, kids. Mainly, we don't want children to be sterilised. We kind of think most of you have probably never had a fulfilling, intimate relationship, otherwise you wouldn't want to take tablets to rid you of any possible pleasure in your adult life. We think that you don't really know what you're talking about and you've been suspended in this weird adolescence because many of you think if you just say something enough, with enough feeling, if you say that you are a boy. I just saw a massive woman. She's about 5'8", pink hair. She had pink short hair, identifiably female, from a country mile. Her whole back of her denim jacket was they, them. I just thought, it's so... Can you imagine walking around sort of thinking that anyone cares enough about you? And perfect strangers are going to read your jacket. I mean, what is she thinking that someone's going to go, noted? Oh my God, did you see that person's they, them jacket? Because that was... And then someone goes, well, that woman, oh my God, don't call her a woman. She's definitely non-binary. I mean, seriously, kids, do you think anybody cares enough about you? If you're lucky, you'll find some decent friends, you'll have parents who care about you, you'll have a wider family who care about you, and maybe some friends, and maybe an HR department who pretends to give a shit. Beyond that, no one cares. No one cares what you think about yourself. No one cares what you call yourself. Nobody's world revolves around you. It's just you. And if you're lucky, you make something of your life where you feel content, that you have moments of real happiness. Because life isn't a barrel of demands that you can force people just to metaphorically take the knee every time you make a demand. Because that isn't how life is. But if we don't have the word woman, if the word woman doesn't mean adult human female, and therefore by extension if a girl doesn't mean an infant human female, then it doesn't matter what you want to talk about, the patriarchy, however you want to say it, mom, whatever. Well, however you want to say this word, which I find just irritating, you can't defend women in any sphere in this country if you don't know what a woman is. So, I'm really you're going to just have to listen, I'm afraid, but I'm really just telling the kids on TikTok because I think they've never really listened, and there's loads of them just tuning in. And they keep saying, oh, she looks like a man. We don't care, because we're not. We're not men pretending to be women, so if you recognise us, if you pretend that we're men, right, and you think that we look like men, we're not going to get upset. It's not like I'm pretending to be something and then you've pointed out what I really am and therefore it means something to me. It's just hysterical. But women-only refuges are important. Men, I'm just going to try and impart as much because they're very cross. When it comes to the way men behave, and girls, if you're watching this and you're actually female, I want you just to have a little think. You can have an angry think if you want. I just want you to have a little think. How would you genuinely feel? It's 8 o'clock at night. It's quite dark. You're walking home. You're desperate for the loo. You go in a public toilet. Dark, maybe a bit rainy. You've got your keys in your hand already, girls. Boys don't do that, but you've got your keys in your hand ready. So as soon as you get to your front door, you can put it in as quickly as possible. You're in the public toilet. And then you hear a man's voice. Like identifiably, maybe he coughs or something as he comes in the toilet. You will hear a man. It doesn't matter how he dresses. You will sense a man. It doesn't matter what bad wig he's got on. You will sense a man and you will be afraid. And you might come out and maybe it's Eddie Izzard, you just don't know. But you will have heard a man, and you will have a very different response than if you heard a woman's voice. It's the same as if one of your close, or maybe a brand new friend, and you've just started university, brand new friend, you get a bit tipsy, and they say, oh, I'm in the halls opposite yours, let's walk home together. So you walk home together, and your friend is female, and they say, and you say, do you want a drink? Or they say, oh, I'll come in your room, have a quick glass of water, I need the loo. Whatever it is, you let them in. Now just imagine your friend is actually a man who calls himself a woman. And he comes and he goes to the toilet and then he makes his excuses to stay a bit longer. You cannot tell me that your absolute response, your instinctive response, would be exactly the same in those two situations. So girls, it's about time you were a little bit honest. It's about time female cyclists stop racing. Like, oh my God. How many women do we need to stand there, smiling, next to a man who's just taken the #1 spot? Like, I don't know, I'd just be like I'd be doing that. I'd be just standing like that. I mean, look, still take your spot if you want, still race if you want, but at least let's have a point at the penis. And how long do we reckon that man who recently took, I think, was it Italy, who recently took the top spot, he's got short, how long do we think he identified as a woman? Maybe 2 hours before the race? Like, there's not that I think there's any point at which you become a woman, but yeah, like, he doesn't look like he's ever thought, even for a second, that he wanted anyone to believe he was a woman. He looks like he just heard there was a bit of prize money. But I just don't understand. Ladies, it's about, like, if not you, then who? Like, how many races do these men have to win before women stand up? And why aren't they standing up? Why aren't they angry? So anyway, that's, it just really annoyed me. I think there comes a point where cycling bodies clearly hate women. The men racing clearly hate women. The spectators clearly don't care enough. So it is going to come down to the individual female cyclists to actually take a stand. And it just reminds me of that awful American female soccer player who is literally, she's basically got a ladder stuck up her arse. She's pulled it so quickly up behind her. It just, like, I just think, who are you to give it away? I mean, I don't even get why anybody does sport, but who are these women to give it away and take it away from your daughters or your granddaughters or your nieces or anybody that you actually care about? Like, it's just despicable. And this matters from, like I said, at the very beginning with the Lionesses. It is not about elite sport, because before you get to the elite level, you've started playing for fun. And those teams are just as important as those that get national platforms. Okay, right, I've talked for far too long. Would anybody else like to say something? Yes.
Right. Okay, this is going to be quite short.
That's all right, I'm going to still pin this on you.
Ooh. Thank you. Right, this is going to be quite short. Okay, so as everyone here knows what a TERF is, but as well as being a TERF, I'm also a SWERF, and that stands for Sex Work Exclusionary Radical Feminist, if you were wondering. So I'm just standing up here because I want to plug I volunteer for an organisation called Nordic Model Now. So Nordic Model Now, it campaigns for the introduction of the Nordic model. The Nordic model is also known as the sex bylaw, whereby you make the buying of sex illegal, but the selling of it is legal. Therefore, so it's also known as the sex bylaw. And this is the best way of protecting women who have been drawn into prostitution, and because any man who engages that woman is automatically committing a crime. So we have a conference coming up in November in central London, which I will read the back of here. It will explore how pornography and prostitution reinforce rape culture and the entitlement that drives male sexual violence. Speaking at the conference will be sex trade survivors, as well as policy experts who will share their real-world experience and highlight the issues and what we can do to tackle them. So it's called Breaking the Cycle, exposing the links between male violence, pornography and prostitution, and it's come along and find out how we can break the cycle. And I'd like to say, you know, there's a cigarette paper between trans rights activists and men's rights activists and privileged male who think they can go out and buy women and view pornography without any kind of guilt or comeback. So that's me. Yes. Oh God, sorry, I've run off for the things.
Well, you won't be surprised that TikTok thought that was hateful. I think they'd all prostitute their mothers, to be honest, on TikTok, because they think it's such an empowering, wonderful thing to do. Okay, is anyone else wanting to talk? Yes. Oh, great. Just 1 minute. I just want to ask, can you put your hand up if it's your first time? Oh, we're still getting new people. Lovely. Well done. Well done. I mean, it is August. It's beautiful weather, but it is August. I can't wait for the Halloween edition at the end of October. Would you like to come and speak? I need to put both of these on you.
Yeah, thank you.
1, 2.
Hi, I've been here several times, but I've never spoken before. And I didn't plan to speak either today, but I was thinking of my friends who are also following online. So a shout out to my friend in Barcelona who's live streaming. And I wanted to say that me and my friends who've been getting into this issue for the last 2 years, we've also noticed that it's really taken a toll on our mental health. Sometimes it's so depressing. And we've just been speaking about the importance of finding good books, positive books about womanhood to read. And I want to show you a book that we have recently been reading with my friends. It's called When God Was a Woman. And it sparks some very interesting conversations with men. Whenever I show this to any men that I'm reading this, it's always like the idea, even just the idea of having God as a woman, and I'm an atheist, but it's an interesting cultural examination. You'd be very surprised about the conversations you can spark just with this book as well. And it's been very helpful for us with my friends as well to focus on some positive things of womanhood, because we're constantly on Twitter as well, reading all of these issues, and it can be very hard sometimes. Also the book Women Who Run with the Wolves. I'm sure many of you here are familiar with it, highly recommended. Just to foster some positive womanly friendship between each other. It can help a lot. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Well, I thought you'd at least be a bit more smug about the win. Right, anyone else? So I'm gonna, yes.
Thank you. Welcome. So I just wanted to draw attention to something our very good dear friend India Willoughby came up with the other day when he was saying on Twitter, because I will always call it Twitter, whatever happens, he was saying on Twitter that soon all the horrible old TERFs would die out, and this got me thinking, and I was like, how old is India Willoughby? So I looked it up. India Willoughby is 57 years old. He's 57 years old, and he thinks that he is a young spring chicken that is going to outlive all the TERFs. And I think this idea that I think it is the level of delusion that can go along with it, that that he really believes this. So I just sort of, who here is 57 or under? I just sort of wanted to get a really vague idea. So I mean, well over half the people here are actually younger than India Willoughby. So if by any chance this gets through to India, I'd just like him to know, I am, for example, also am younger than India Willoughby. So he's got, you know, he's going to have a very long wait. And I just hope that message gets out to him. So that was all I had to say, really.
I wouldn't want to wish Alzheimer's or dementia on anyone. Totally unrelated, but there are a lot of men who have so-called transition that when they get to be elderly, they forget that these were their wishes, and then they wake up in a body that isn't their own, which I'm not saying that's a good thing, it's a terrible thing. Obviously, I wouldn't wish it on anyone at all ever. I would never wish, it's not related to what you said. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But do you know Age UK? Have you heard about this? What they're doing now with men or women who've transitioned is they make kind of like a living will to affirm their preferred language and how they're addressed and how they identify. So when let's say you get diagnosed, let's say you're a man, you've had your penis cut off, you've been going by the name Lucinda for the last 20 years, right? And then you get dementia. Then what they'll do is they will sit with you in your early diagnosis and they will reaffirm that no matter what you say or how distressed you are as a 70-year-old who's really in the nasty, vile grip of dementia or Alzheimer's, that they will stick to your identity as you set it at 50. So you'll have very distressed people on a daily basis who have a renewed distress about this body that they have because they revert back in their memory and their identity to somebody who never decided that they were the opposite sex. I mean, it's just so insane. So what Age UK is now saying is that they want to just repeatedly traumatise people who have gone through transition, who don't recognise rather their body or their identity. So when someone say, no, I'm George, and they're remembering maybe their childhood and their parents and maybe their early years of marriage or having kids, the people caring for them will say, oh, no, you're a Lucinda. No, you're a woman. I mean, how mental is that? That's just, I can't really understand where that comes from and who benefits. Because it's not going to be the care workers on minimum wage who know the distress that person feels on a daily basis, who then have to say to them, no, you're not George, you're Lucinda. No, those are your breasts. No, definitely, that's your body. They're your breasts. No, your penis is gone. No, that's definitely right. This is what you wanted to be called. I just think, what we know, I don't know much about, I'm very lucky, I don't know, none of my family members have had Alzheimer's or dementia. But I know, from the very little that I know, that you would just go along with. So when my grandmother was very unwell, and she was in a nursing home, if she thought that it was like 1984, I wouldn't spend my whole visit trying to tell her that it was 2010. Because that would be really distressing and a really cruel thing to do. You would just try and make their lives as easy as possible. Because just knowing that you don't remember stuff and that you're confused is a really terrifying place to be. But to think now that a charity devoted to the care of the elderly would promote this nonsense is just unfathomable, just so cruel.
Can I just quickly say something?
Yes.
Because my job, that I was told that I was gone too far in being concerned about these gender issues, my job is literally to be concerned about the humanity of care of people with dementia. It's literally my job to be concerned about this.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Right. Ah, bloody hell. Well, anyway, just TikTok. Let me just tell you, TERF Island is called TERF Island because we're winning. So YouTube people, what you don't know is on YouTube, right? There's all like, yay, amazing speech, great, love that woman, I'm a swerve too, TERF Island, all this stuff, YouTube, on TikTok. Trans rights are human rights, that's like the main one. She's disgusting, that's so hateful. It's just really funny. But kids, we got the money. We've got the power. We've got the power to curfew you, send you to your rooms, withdraw the internet, all those things. I won't talk about mortgages because I know some of them get upset. But we sensible women, our hearts are in the right place, along with our identities. So this is going to be hard for you, but this is a fight that you're going to lose quite dramatically. So we're all done. Calling once. What? Who said yes? Yes. Come. Lovely.
I'm keeping these on because I want to be employed in the future. It's my first time here. I've had a great time. One issue that I'd like to talk about that has concerned me is the issue of surgeons wanting to transplant wombs into men. Maybe this has been already spoken about, but the idea is horrific to my core as a woman. I've known women who haven't been able to fall pregnant, and the idea that the scientific community are not working their butts off to get those women the ability to bear children as they should, but rather focusing their time and resources to give men this opportunity. And it won't be just any men, it will be privileged rich men who will be able to afford these surgeries. And it's just not right. It doesn't settle well with me. I know there are gay couples that want to have children, and to me that's a bit of a separate issue, but to me this is just a bridge too far. And this is definitely under 5 minutes, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Would you like a new bag strap?
Oh, thank you.
Right, okay. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Go on. I'm going to pin these on you.
Thank you.
Two, I'm afraid. It's very sunny.
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Sylvia, and this is my third time here, and I'm really I'm so grateful for all you women that have started this, especially Kelly. Someone tried to pick me 3 years ago, someone from the LGBTQ community, and she was so mad, and she was called all sorts of names. She was the first one in my group actually, and I wasn't ready, and she got quite upset. And I wish she was here today, actually. She would be very proud. So I just wanted to say that I went outside the Westminster Magistrate Court on Thursday because of that individual, Alan Baker. And I was supposed to meet other TERFs, but I ended up being on my own with 12 trans activists. And they were quite scary. I've never met them before. It was my first encounter. And yes, they were intimidating and much taller than me. I'm not very tall, so they were bigger. And for some reason, they started taking the piss out of my bike. I mean, I don't have a great bike, but it's like, okay, go for the bike, And then I was like, you know what, you're cowards. You're hiding behind the mask. And then this very tall guy took the mask down. And I was like, okay. And I thought that we could maybe have a little bit of and by that, then the bullying started even more. And so Anyway, very quick, I just said something quickly and I was like, you know, my bike is nicer than your face. And then I quickly left. So I just wanted to say that if anyone who wants to do those sorts of activities, make sure that you meet your TERF friends at the tube station. Do not go out, in front of any magistrate court, any places on your own, because they are there. They will be there. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
I'm going to let Kevin in. Yeah. You look familiar.
I know it's highly, highly irregular, but I was so busy going on first and not going on forever, because it is called Let Women Speak, isn't it? So I know I've always got plenty to say. Now, what I omitted to tell you was that I reported myself to the police for criminal damage. Because if I am conscience compelled to criminally damage something, then I am also conscience compelled to jolly well explain it. Don't you think? Yeah. Yep. So, and Tamsin can confirm that I wrestled with the software of Sussex Police and they lost my complaint. I had to start it all over again. I don't know how they're catching any villains. Anyway, so we finished it, we got it ready. Oh, and you know they ask about hate crime. I said, yes, there was homophobia. It was against the intersex people. Yes, it jolly well was homophobic. That's why I did it. So I was inverting their logic. Anyway, I sort of wondered what would happen and I was quite expecting to be arrested. Anyhow, this dear police officer rings me up. Oh, hello, it's Ella. Oh, hello, Ella, how do you do? She says, I'm from Sussex Police. And I said, oh, yes. You'll want to know about the Methodist Church. Oh, yes, she said. So I explained with extremely great detail about all of the sexual offender stats from Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Canada, Republic of Ireland, you name it, I stuck it in. Anyway, it was hilarious because she was actually sounding like she was kind of going for it. Anyway, we get to the end of all of that and I said, well, when do you want me to, what do we do now? And she said, no, we don't, but you do realise it was criminal damage. And I said, yes, I realise it was criminal damage. I did it deliberately. and I reported it, so I must know it was criminal damage, right? Talk about playing with their heads. Anyway, she kept going round a rather unhelpful autistic loop that I couldn't quite get the hang of. So anyway, I finally messaged her and said, look, I'm very happy to come down to the police station and you can arrest and charge me. Just tell me when would be convenient. Oh no, Miss Dimyon, we don't want to charge you. Okay, that's fine by me, but don't think I won't be doing it again. Don't insult my flag. Don't insult my flag.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes. No. So we've got two. Just for two.
Oh, there we go. So obviously I haven't prepared, but I am a TERF, and so I feel I ought to say that as a sort of, like this is some sort of anonymous, anyway. So I haven't prepared, but I keep noticing on Twitter, because I'm obsessed, that I think people think that just changing people's minds is going to be enough. But I think everyone agreed with us already. I think that when you say to people, do you think he's a woman? They'll say, oh no, of course not. And that has always been the truth. It's necessary to change people's minds, but it's not sufficient. What's sufficient is to say that and get people saying it out loud, but also to actually change stuff. And I can't wait for the Party of Women to get
started. But I don't think we just need MPs, people standing as MPs and doing speeches. And we need councillors, because that's how they got us to this stage. The reason that the ponds at Hampstead have a man's one, a woman's one, and a mixed one, but men can go in the women's one, is because councillors or people who run that changed it. And we need to change those things back. And in some of those places, we need to have, where there weren't rules before because society just made it happen, we might need to put in rules now that society has sort of changed it or made it vague. And I think we shouldn't underestimate this. Having said that, I wanted to say something really positive. I don't know if everyone listens to the Court of the EDI Jester, Barry's YouTube, but he had the other day, he had a piece about, now, is it ESG, SEG, whatever it is that's making all our HR departments go completely bonkers. Basically, in HR, in sort of valuing your company, it's really, really hard to make something good and sell it to people, but it's pretty easy to say, we recycle properly and we've got lots of trans people on staff and we did a pride parade through the office and all that sort of stuff. But Barry reported the other day that from the Financial Times, Standard & Poor have taken that out of their criteria. Changes like that are going to make a massive difference because those are how something really small and minor has become something sort of massive. So I think that's a really good thing. And that's all I've got, really. There we go.
All right. Anyone else? I'm going to round up. Yes, come on. Well, it's now identifying as August again, so at least that's one thing.
I've done this before.
Ooh. You've not spoken before?
No.
Oh, well done.
Hi, this is my first time speaking. But because I haven't prepared anything for today, I've only stood up now because nobody else has been speaking, not many people have been speaking. And I'm just going to speak to you somebody else's words. And these are the words of John Stuart Mill and Mrs. Harriet Taylor Mill. And John Stuart Mill, the famous philosopher. Reformers of the Reformers tree. Correct. And he took great pains to insist that Harriet Taylor Mill was part of the making of all his work. And if you like this stuff, you can download it free from the internet. And this is his work and her work is on liberty. And he says, and she says, if all mankind minus one were of one opinion, and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind. That's a basic liberal principle. Sadly, too many liberals all over the world are no longer being liberal, but they are happy to have no debate. But they also, the Mills, go on to say, but the peculiar evil of silencing the expression of an opinion is that it is robbing the human race, posterity, as well as the existing generation, those who dissent from the opinion, still more than those who hold it. If the opinion is right, they're deprived of the opportunity of exchanging error for truth. If wrong, they lose what is almost as great a benefit, the clearer perception and livelier impression of truth produced by its collision with error. What they're saying there is, they don't silence people because they may have it right and you may be silencing them wrongly. And that's our job here. And that's the job that Kellie-Jay and all the stewards and assistants and helpers have been doing, is making sure that people who dissent from not the majority opinion, but the publicised opinion, the favourite fashionable opinion at the moment, and all these gatherings that Kellie-Jay organises here and across the world are able to let women say the truth according to our lights that other people are trying to stop us from speaking. And another person who's a really good thinker, Hannah Arendt, she has died, but she's immortal, of course. And she says, in The Origins of Totalitarianism, this is 1951, this is before even I was born, and I'm as old as anybody else here, I think.
Are you as old as India?
Frankly, I'm happy to be older than him. What's his real name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. And Hannah Arendt says, you'll love this bit, the self-compulsion of ideological thinking ruins all relationships with reality. The ideal subject for totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction and the distinction between true and false no longer exists. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're up against. Thank you.
Okay, so Party of Women is coming. It takes 4 to 6 weeks usually to register a party. Can I just say we have both registered fascism. BNP is a registered party, but we're in our 13th week of waiting for them to register the Party of Women. It's been with the legal team for quite a while. Then it's on to the approval board, and I'm still waiting. So let's see. However, the Party of Women is not just about MPs. Like this lady said behind me, it's councils that are really important too. They make the decision whether or not they send someone dressed as a woman round to care for an elderly woman in her own home. It will be those sorts of things. They're the people that sit on the advisory boards for education, preschool, nursery settings, which put this insane, batshit crazy gender identity stuff into curriculums. So it is really important. And you do make real change very quickly in councils. I'm very lucky that the man, Helen Belcher, is in lots of children's committees. It's perplexing. But he's a councillor and he's in the children's committees now. A long time ago, before any of us realised what was going on, fostering and adoption was completely co-opted by this cult. And so they're now putting boys that identify as girls, teenage boys, into foster care homes where those people might have asked for females because they might have younger children and they're a little bit wary about fostering a teenage boy. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. Or you might get a vulnerable girl going into a house with an AGP. And obviously this happens throughout fostering and other care settings for children. So children's homes, I just can't imagine. I mean, children's homes are a place where children have the poorest outcomes of any child in this country. And now we can't even guarantee that women working in those children's homes are actually women. I mean, it is totally scandalous. So, Police and Crimes Commissioners is another area of interest for the Party of Women. I think the police would be a better force, generally, force for good, if we had more women in positions, political positions of power within the police. I'd like the rest of the police to be not political at all. I don't want to see another pride lanyard. I saw the other day the Royal Lifeguard thing had like a unicorn rubber something and they were all going along. I just thought, if I'm drowning, I don't even care if you are terrible people. If you could just scoop me up out the sea. That's same if my house is burning. As I'm being lifted down the stairs, let's face it, by a bloke, because women are just not going to be strong enough. Sorry, women. But if I'm being lifted down the stairs, I'm not going to be going, Do you support LGBT rights? I'm just going to hope that both of us get out alive. It's obscene. Anyway, so police and crimes commissioners, councillors, and of course MPs. And that is the way that we will undo this. Because you're right, convincing people is not enough because most of them already agree with us. What I've always thought my job was is to tell the people just what the hell is going on. It's not about saying to someone, do you know women don't have penises? And them going, what? I've never heard such a thing. It's about me saying, did you know that if a man calls himself a woman, he can be in changing rooms with your daughter? That's the sort of thing that moves people. So I want to say thank you to the stewards, as always. And thank you to the police who've been unnecessary again. I don't know if trans activists are this clever, but it kind of feels like we're being lulled into a false sense of security. And I think they will come back with a vengeance when they're back at school. So if you can, even though you may be afraid, speak up loud and clear that women don't have penises whenever you can, crowbar it into a conversation, then I promise we will win. If you can, put a little sticker here and there, be the billboard, have conversations here, there and everywhere to ensure that you don't go insane and you help other people stay in the right side of reality, then I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Because, this is phallic, because I never lose. Thanks, TikTok. It was so lovely to see you all. That was good. Oh, no for me.